Hello and welcome back. It's been a while, but here we are once again. And although this is not a restoration or custom video, it is a cool display for Hot Wheels or Matchbox in the shape of a Volkswagen bus. I'm not sure why this came to mind, I just thought it would be a cool little project. I had some leftover poplar from a project that I did last year that I really couldn't use for anything else, and I thought this would be perfect. This was also the perfect opportunity for me to use the X-Carve. I've had this for about a year, but I haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to projects. I used easel for this project. I took a photo, imported it into easel, which outlined the VW bus. Then all I had to do was add the slots. As you can see, it started much smaller than it ends up. Originally it was going to be a small bus with 3 slots, but you'll see in the end it's much larger. Here is the 4/4 rough sawn offcuts that I'm going to use for this project. Now since these were cupped, I needed to run them through the planer with a sled to flatten one side. One side is good and flat, I can remove it from the sled and simply run it through the planer. Sides on both pieces are perfectly flat. I wanted to mention that you do not need a CNC to do this project. You could do it with a jigsaw and a handheld router. You could even use a handsaw or a bandsaw. The CNC just makes it a little bit easier and cleaner. It's certainly not faster. The CNC is pretty slow. Instead of using the clamps on the CNC, I like to use double-sided Gorilla Tape. I stick it right to the wasteboard. I don't have to worry about the clamps getting in the way. Now these pieces are cut individually on the CNC. I set the home position, zero it out, and then I start cutting the first piece. Speaking of that, that's one thing I would change on this build. If I had a larger bit, I could have cut both the pieces stacked on top of each other.
Alexa, turn on dust collector.
After they're cut out, I simply apply some wood glue to all of the surfaces, stack them on top of each other, and then I tack them in place. If I had the larger bit that I now own, I could have skipped this entire step. I would not have dealt with the glue and the cleanup, tacking it together. The one bit could have cut everything. Also, it would have taken me half the time, only cutting one piece. This is a bit overkill, but once the glue was cleaned up, I stack a bunch of steel weights on top of the display. The reason why is the middle, I couldn't attach any pin nails in there, and it had a little bit of a bow. After that, I take the display to my router table, and using a flush trim bit, I trim up all the edges. This is another process that could have been eliminated had I had the larger bit. they would have lined up perfectly because it would have been one piece. Since these are two pieces, they don't line up quite so perfect. But the flush trim bit will take care of all that. Next, I sand the entire display down with 120 grit, and then I move up to 220 as the final pass. And then hand sand all the edges with a 220 grit pad. Now I consider this more of an experiment, so I'm just going to finish it off with some Danish oil. Just get it in all the nooks and crannies. I only use one coat. If I were to make this for a nice display piece, I would finish it off with some shellac or some stain, and then after that I would put a top coat on it, like a clear coat or something like that. But I think it turned out pretty cool. Now this display holds 18 cars. If you remember, we started with 3, we made it up to 18, and I wanted to put all Volkswagens in there, but I don't have enough Volkswagens. So we've got some Volkswagens and some Porsches. That's going to wrap it up for this one. If you have any questions or comments, post those below. And as always, thanks for watching.